Welcome back, pro wrestling fans. Welcome back, IWC. It's me. It's me. It's the G.O.C. coming to you live today, 25 feet below the surface of the earth, here on Guardian of Chaos, the YouTube channel for Chaos Corner. I'll say that to say this because I tell it like it is. Another special edition here on Story Time with your old buddy, the Guardian of Chaos, Big Daddy. One man, unique, unedited, unscripted, raw dog for you, the fans. I want you to kick back and relax, whether you're poolside, whether you're at the barbecue, whether you're at a family outing, whether you just got out of church services, whether you're at the restaurant, the bar, the pub, the tavern, or maybe even if you're working on a Sunday, I want you to enjoy Story Time. Much love and respect. I can't thank you guys enough for being here. Shout out to my moderators, the OTS Tribal Queen, and Austin Nance. You guys are holding it down, keeping it real, and maintaining it. I can't thank you enough. So guys, gals, subscribers, members, just know that I get all the analytics here on Guardian of Chaos, the YouTube channel. And you know that I know that you're watching, whether you're subscribed or unsubscribed. There's over 3,000 videos here on the channel. Go to the playlist. You have over 400 episodes of the Chaos Corner show. You have over 500, 600, 700 of Chaos clips. You have in-ring action from my career and every event just about that I've ever worked, and all the stars and heroes and legends and rookies and veterans and young lions that I ever worked with. You also have the classic section on the playlist where I go through all the classics from the 70s, 80s into the 90s. And then, of course, there's Story Time with the G.O.C. There's the episodic YouTube series Flashback with the G.O.C. And there's even Dinner for Two, the show that I do with the wife, and we talk about our personal lives and open up, and you get a chance to see what I'm really all about. You guys know that. My over 50 years experience as a historian, a researcher, a scout, a promoter, an agent, a producer, a smark, a mark. That's right, I said it, a mark. Just like all you geeks and goons and dweebs and virgins and neckbeards and mouth breathers. No offense, man. Kayfabe, we're all marks at one time or another. And of course, my over 3 decades as a pro wrestling manager from pillar to post and coast to coast, I took the fucking bumps. Over 200 matches a year. Booked over 100 times a year all over this country as an independent pro wrestling manager. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Let that marinate. I don't want to get too crazy. We know that the world is insane here in 2024. The near assassination of the former president yesterday. Border invasions, the economy, wars, rumor of wars, the ineptitude of the government and everything else that's going on. I'm not here to talk about that. That's another story for another time. But I will say this. Stay mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually fit because you're going to need it for what's coming. So I'm here as a distraction, a stress reliever, not only for me, but hopefully for you as well. We're coming up on hopefully close to 1 million total views, 1,500 subscribers, and nobody works harder than this show because this isn't a fucking podcast. This is a show. I put out anywhere from 30 to 90 videos a month. Nobody works harder. So sit back and relax. Go back and check out yesterday, July 13th, which will go down in history in this country and around the world, and you know why. The near assassination. You'll always remember where you were, whether it be 9/11, whether it be when Elvis passed away, when Kennedy was shot, at MLK, the historical events that have happened in this country. You'll always remember where you were. And you were here on Chaos Corner. So go back and check out the unbelievable stories from yesterday, talking about Dusty Rhodes and the Road Warriors, talking about good old JR, Jim Ross, the 50 greatest calls in pro wrestling history, according to good old JR, because that's what we're researching. That's what we're reviewing. That's what we're covering here on Storytime. Business is about to pick up. And I'm reading this along with you, the fans, for the very first time here together. Because that's what you get. Stand by. Let me stay hydrated. It's another 95-degree banger out there. Stand by. Hydrate. Grab a beverage. Grab a snack. Grab your wife. Grab your neighbors. Grab your friends. Drop an elbow on that like button. Share. Subscribe. Leave a comment. Go to the community section. Say something. Email me, for crying out loud. You guys know that I report live on WWE and AEW every week. Right here on the community page on YouTube, and of course over on Twitter, aka X, or is it X, aka Twitter? Hey, Elon, are you listening? You said you might bring it back to Twitter instead of X. Follow me over there in real time at Big Daddy G.O.C. And the G.O.C. stands for the Guardian of Chaos. Follow me on Instagram, the Guardian of Chaos. I have 2 accounts on Facebook. That's right, there's 2 for personal reasons, promotional reasons, and just to get the product over and to let you in on my personal life. The first one is for all you geeks out there. No offense, man. As I said a few minutes earlier, follow me on Facebook at JBrony. Just like it sounds, all you pencil necks. JBrony for all you jabronis out there. No offense. Lighten up, man. I say it all the time. You guys know. And then, of course, there's my other account on Facebook in honor of my heritage. And it's a little more personal to me because I let you in on my life. I put a face to the product. No editing, no Patreon, no paywalls. What you see is what you get. Isn't that a song? Well, what you see is what you get. Oh, what you see is what you get. Well, what you see is what you get now, baby. Woo! No? Too early? Too much? Too soon? So follow me over there on Facebook at, and I'll say it twice, Prodigio Fidelis El Guardian. You gotta roll the tongue. Prodigio Fidelis El Guardian. Also follow me on Guardian of Chaos over on Rumble. I do it all on the IWC. So let's get right into it. We did a little opening monologue here because business is about to pick up. Oh, nothing like H2O. I just want to wet my whistle. I just want to wet my whistle. No? I'm trying, man. All right, let's get right into it. And we're going to even make it about current day. You know that on the last episode of Story Time from yesterday, we were in 1988, November of 1988, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just double check the date on that because we go forward to go back and back to go forward, not only on the flashback series, not only on today, this date in pro wrestling history, the 2 of the shows that I do here on the channel, but also here on Story Time. We will jump into the time machine here on Business is About to Pick Up Prayers and Thoughts with good old JR, who I guess rocked the world of Missy Hyatt at one time. But what I say, man, I know it's a kid's show. My family's watching. I get it. I didn't say anything offensive. Lighten up, snowflakes. I believe we went all the way back, if I'm not mistaken, on yesterday's show. Now, I was correct. November 26, 1988. So we're going to go back to go forward. May 25th, 2019. I'll say it again. May 25th, 2019. AEW's inaugural pay-per-view, Double or Nothing, at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. School is in session. Let me take attendance before we get going to see who's here. OTS Tribal Queen, I know you're here. Austin, I know you're here. All the rest of you lurkers, I know you're here because I get the analytics. I have somebody watching you as you're watching me. Bueller. Bueller. Anyone? School is in session. Get out your notebooks. So when you go to the office tomorrow, or the water cooler, or your next event, your next venue, you learn things when you come here. Actual history, facts, so you can add to the conversation and know what the fuck you're talking about. Alternatives are good for everybody. The second someone has a monopoly on anything, that anything inevitably gets worse. And while wrestling has always had hot territories and large players, there was never really one central player who cornered the wrestling business outright until the WWF, aka WWE. Since WCW went out of business in 2001 if you will, and left the WWE unopposed on the top of the wrestling mountain, there had been other much smaller players here and there. But our industry effectively went from 30-ish territories when I started to 3 nationally broadcast companies during the Monday Night Wars to just 1 internationally recognized company. Wow. And when that happened, the term professional wrestling became interchangeable with WWE in the vocabulary of the mainstream and the casual fan alike. There was one show in town, and everyone knew it. And that meant less variety for fans, fewer opportunities for talent, and less chance of any other company being able to rise up and make themselves a national force once again. Very true indeed. When WWE became the only real show in town, it didn't so much take something new for our business to redraw itself again. It took it going all the way back to the start. Just like what happened after the end of the golden era in the 1950s. And as we know, the second golden era was in the 1980s. Professional wrestling went back to its small, territory-based roots and began to build out small, exciting, independent companies where people could work and make a name for themselves, much like in today's independence, which is the backbone of this industry, including my home, with Paul Roma, Mario Mancini, Paul Perez, and Big Steve Tracy, the Paradise Four at Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling. I don't have to tell you Roma's accolades, WCW, the WWF, WrestleManias, Madison Square Garden, the Four Horsemen, Power and Glory, the Young Stallions, Pretty Wonderful. I can go on and on and on about Roma. He's our head trainer at Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling, and I don't have to tell you about Mario Mancini either. In the WWF from 1984 to 1992. When he was in the WWF in 1984 at 17, he was the youngest grappler in World Wrestling Federation history at that point in 1984. Debut for The Undertaker, Ted DiBiase, Demolition, the Hart Foundation. The list goes on and on of what Mancini has accomplished in this business, and he is the owner at Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling. And then there's also our other co-trainer, Mr. Paul Perez, a second-generation grappler. His mother and father were luchadors. Paul Perez was in the WWF, I believe, from 88 to 91. He was trained not in a ring, but in the basement of his house by his parents, who, as I said, were luchadors. Cousin to WWF veteran Roberto Soto. And then there's the silent partner, who was briefly in the WWF, and it just didn't work out. Because who's going to try to go up against a 6'6", 6'7", 380-pound giant in Big Dave Paradise, a.k.a. Big Steve Tracy, the owner of the Rib House, former bounty hunter for Dr. D. David Schultz, and, of course, Big Steve bail bonds. Those are the Paradise Four, along with yours truly. I guess I would be Paradise 5? Honored and privileged. So my point, the independents nowadays are kind of like the territorial system back in the day. Because here in the greater New England tri-state northeast area, in the shadows of Titan Towers and around this country, there's literally dozens upon dozens of independent organizations right here in the Constitution State. Running every weekend, there's 2 and 3 events. It really is incredible what happened. So that's great for the workers, great for the students, great for the veterans. Everybody gets a payday, gets experience, and it's the backbone of this fucking industry. Make no mistake about it. Support independent pro wrestling. You'll get to see the product up close, and it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg to go see future stars, and then, of course, current veterans and heroes that come back to the independent wrestling scene. It's just that simple, if I could put that PSA out there about the independent pro wrestling scene. So let's get back and focus, Chaos, focus here. Wow, where was I? The golden era of the 1950s and the independent companies where people could work and make a name for themselves. And from these small companies, wrestlers around the country and internationally too, began to understand the power of entrepreneurship and brand building. The grassroots effect was real and growing rapidly through social media, podcasts, YouTube, and online pay-per-views. Wrestling fans were finding their new favorite indie wrestler just like music fans were finding their new favorite song or new favorite indie band. You guys get it, right? The likes of the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega started making real money, setting their own dates, selling their own shirts, and amassing their own fan bases. The hunger for an alternative was clearly shining through. Thousands of wrestling fans who just felt WWE was no longer for them turned out night after night in smaller venues to support their beloved professional wrestling. And they brought their cash and collective voices with them. So much so that in 2017, when wrestling journalist Dave Meltzer bet $1 online that the trailblazing Ring of Honor wrestling company wouldn't be able to sell 10,000 tickets to its latest card, something no company outside of the WWE had done since the closure of WCW. Indie wrestling fans sold out. That's right, sold out that event in 30 minutes with 11,262 tickets purchased. Now, this was the beginning of leading into AEW, as you fans know, and currently what the product is in 2024. Let's face it, 2019, 2020, 2021, AEW was hot. It was a great alternative. People talk about the NWA, MLW, Ring of Honor, TNA Impact, New Japan, CMLL, AAA. AEW was the alternative in those first 3 years. Now, what's happened since then, the last couple of years, 22, 23, 24, yeah, it's gone down the porcelain throne, so to speak. I'm just calling it like it is. I give you the good, the bad, and the ugly here on this channel. So I'm just giving you history. The sellout led people with product knowledge and contracts to notice the business opportunity numbers like this could lead to. There were a lot of lapsed wrestling fans who wanted to support something other than the WWE. And there was one man in particular who knew that. If he could hire the right people, bring the right resources, and convince the right talent to come aboard a brand new wrestling company, then building that national alternative was all of a sudden a real possibility. Now, we know WCW eventually failed. We know what happened to ECW when persona non grata. We know what happened to the territories from World Class Championship Wrestling to the AWA, to Georgia, to Florida, to Mid-Atlantic, to the UWF, to the Deep South, so on and so forth. You guys know that I know my history here. That man was Tony Khan, and his company was All Elite Wrestling. After Jan died and my 2-year contract came to a close in WWE, to quote the great Jim Ross, I decided to not re-up, as they had their broadcast team set, and I wanted to do something to challenge myself full-time. Instead of just here and there, I truly loved the WWE, but Vince understood my need to keep going and not languish on the sidelines while trying to deal with being alone. It's a hard thing to do. JR is one hell of a man. When the offer to join AEW came in, I took it. I first met Tony in Long Beach one night after Tony came with his friends as a fan to a New Japan event there. Over the course of the night, he began to ask me questions about how to run a wrestling company, and I thought no more of it. Many people had floated and talked about new wrestling companies over the years, and a few had tried to get various companies off the ground. We all remember the NAWA. We all remember Evolve, so on and so forth. But nobody in North America could get all the variables needed to present an alternative to the WWE. So when my manager called me one day and said there was an offer, I was wary at first. But the more I learned, the more I could see that AEW had a shot. And here we are, what, 5.5 years later? With Tony's father, owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I think football club, soccer team over in the UK. His father is a billionaire and owner of Jacksonville, as I just said, and the team is the Fulham Premier League soccer team. Tony had access to the financing and the TV relationships to make it happen. And as Tony himself was the director of football at Fulham and senior president of the football and analytics at the Jaguars, who knew, considering that TK sometimes has seems like he has the brain of a dehydrated baby. I mean, no offense, man. What'd I say? He uniquely understood the importance of talent acquisition and brand awareness in getting a sports franchise going. I'm playing with his little dolls and his message boards. I'm just saying, man. I give you my personal views and thoughts and opinions sometimes, and that's why you're here, man. I have no idea if I was the first person hired by AEW, but I know I was one of the first 5 for sure. I signed a 3-year deal and was excited to be the voice of a startup new brand because I believed in the talent, the mission statement, and the want to offer choice in our business. A great concept, and I couldn't agree more with JR. Unlike so many of the startups that came before it, AEW seemed to find steady legs really early on. I knew from experience that 2 biggest pillars of any new wrestling endeavor are talent and television. While AEW was knee-deep, or as I say, balls-deep, in talks with Warner Brothers Discovery for the TV part. And one look down their roster showed me that they had enough talent to launch. If you have a locker room with New Japan Pro Wrestling standout Kenny Omega, WWE veteran, hi guys, Chris Jericho, the Young Bucks, and Cody Rhodes in it, then you have a shot. Remember the time frame, 2019, and where the business was at that point, just a few short 5 years ago. All any startup company can offer is an opportunity at success. No guarantees, and that's maybe part of what attracted me to their pitch in the first instance. Tony clearly wasn't messing around when it came to the vision for what the wrestling business needed. Another company to make the business better for workers and fans alike. I couldn't agree more. I really couldn't. I was excited in 2019 and 2020, especially going into the pandemic. That's another story for another time, man. And with marquee names that made that impressive 30-minute ROH sellout a reality, now signed to AEW as both talent and co-executive vice presidents, AEW was ready for its inaugural pay-per-view, Double or Nothing. And I was on board too, and so grateful to be so far into my career. A new boss in a new company calling a new pay-per-view. And I knew our intent was to finish that same raucous inaugural pay-per-view as hot as possible to let the fans know that AEW had arrived. I just had no idea what the hot finish would be. I'd heard that we were in talks with former WWE champion Dean Ambrose, a.k.a. Moxley. But I had no idea that he'd shed his WWE skin and appear at Double or Nothing as Jon Moxley, where he blew the roof off with his last-minute entrance. And I had a feeling when I heard the fans' reaction to Moxley showing up in the final minutes of our broadcast that AEW was onto something that was sorely lacking in our industry. Hey, what the hell? Moxley was so full of passion and raw aggression that I felt it in my bones all the way from the broadcast position. It felt like Stone Cold moment. Let's not get carried away, JR. I respect you, but You're going to compare Moxley to Stone Cold? Come on. And it made any tiny reservations that I might have had about jumping to a new company almost 50 years into my career disappear. Persona non grata. The crowd, having already experienced everything the company had to offer, still had the energy to roar Moxley on as he entered the ring. They could feel that this moment was for them. And looking at John, I could see that this moment was for him too. Now, you know the pay-per-view they're talking about with ROH. That was Ring of Honor merged with New Japan Pro Wrestling when they sold out at Madison Square Garden. Over 11,000 fans. That was a huge coup. It really was. Moxley had told the world about feeling restricted and tied down creatively in WWE. So when he appeared at Double or Nothing, newly invigorated, he brought with him an energy that lit up the MGM Grand Garden Arena. He entered through the crowd, jumped the barricade, and rolled into the ring looking for a fight. Hence now, when he comes in, here it is 5 years later. Wild thing, you make my heart sing. I say, wild thing. No, my karaoke's a little bit off today for story time. Really? Cut me some slack, man. We're 25 minutes in. He entered through the crowd, jumped the barricade, and rolled into the ring looking for a fight, as I just said. Omega was down on the mat. Chris Jericho was in the corner, microphone in hand, and both John and Chris knew to milk the reaction a little longer. I wish they would do that now with the ring psychology, emotional investment, storytelling, ring generalship, showmanship, letting the crowd soak it in, live within the moment, instead of just getting in cold and starting right away. Ding, ding, there's the bell, the match, lock up, collar and elbow. Come on. Really? Play the crowd. Read the room. I'm just saying from my 30-plus years experience. I'm no better. I'm no different. I'm just unique at what I do. I told you already. I'm going to give it to you and tell it like it is, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I know I'm repeating myself here. I want to get the point across and make it relatable to you guys and gals. The ensuing violent catharsis after he hit the ring brought back wonderful memories of the best nights during WWE's Attitude Era, with a DDT planting Jericho's head into the canvas, and then the same for the referee. The chaotic scene was alive. The thunder and lightning of Jon Moxley leaving its mark. It felt like teamwork, like all the staff and crew and wrestlers and the fans were working together to make something worth remembering, and I can agree with that original pay-per-view in 2019 for AEW's Double or Nothing. I watched it live myself. I was a part of the experience. This was the night that wrestling got its second viable voice, and everyone in the building was pulling in unison to make it happen. Those people in the stands, they held up their end of the deal, and we should all be grateful for that as wrestling fans and fellow wrestling fans. There was so much riding on AEW having a hot first night that it lit a fire under us all in the wrestling community. Moxley and Omega began the fight through the ring, over the barricade, and into the crowd. Moxley and Omega on the outside beating the hell out of each other. And here they come, right into the front row. It's physical, it's intense, and these fans are absolutely going crazy. It's a bar fight. But we were essentially in a battle with ourselves. WWE was too big and too far down the road, with too many historical relationships and brand deals and too much international cachet to try to topple. Makes sense to me, and it's very accurate. That was never AEW's focus to begin with. We know that it's changed since then. We know what it's the current history. You guys know what I'm talking about if you're staying on top of the product. We weren't trying to beat WWE, but to establish ourselves as an alternative to the WWE. There's a whole lot of pie out there, and millions of wrestling fans were no longer dining on the kind WWE was selling. And that was true back then. But now there's only about, 600,000 or 700,000 fans weekly dining on AEW. And I'm just bringing you up to date here in 2024. Moxley and Omega fought their way into the giant poker chip staging we had in the arena for a moment that was designed to be eye-catching and leave wrestling fans all over the world with a viral clip that could light up the internet. the IWC, if you will. The debuting Moxley hooked Omega's hands behind his back and spiked Kenny's head in the corner of the giant stack they were both fighting on. Moxley's out of control. He's so unpredictable. And now look at this. Omega Moxley on top of the stack of chips. Oh, what a moment. How do you like AEW now? 2019, Jim Ross. I knew the next time we had a major show, anything less than overwhelming success was going to make Double or Nothing feel like a fluke. And one thing you can't be when you're the new kid on the block is just lucky. You have to aim to be consistently great. That's what converts interest into fandom. Fandom, not tribalism like you geeks call it nowadays. It's fandom. And I couldn't wait for the chance to convert more viewers into fans over and over again. What a night it was here at Double or Nothing for the whole crew. I'm Jim Ross, saying thanks for being with us, everybody, and so long till next time. I'll say that to say this because I tell it like it is. Story time here with the G.O.C. Come on back. We're just getting started. We're going to move on to the next story. Hit that like button. I rake it for crying out loud. Don't you dare miss it.